Welcome, y'all, into WildUte University. We've got a big one on the docket today here. We're talking about the Big 12 breathing down the ACC's neck and closing the money gap, the financial gap with the conference. Guys, the information that came out this week about the All-State 12, about the naming sponsorship rights, and also some more information that came out in a Dennis Dodd article is crazy. It's been missed by a lot of folks. We're going to jump into it and look at the financial impacts, the implication, and what that means with the Big 12's future payouts versus the ACC's, even with Florida State and Clemson in conference. So there's a lot to get into today. Class is in session. Let's get into the sucker right now. First off, we're going to look at some information here. As previously mentioned here, Brett McMurphy came out with an article earlier this week that spoke of the new naming convention for the Big 12 conference. The Big 12, likely in the near future, probably going into the 2025 season, will not be known as the Big 12 anymore, but it's probably going to be called the All-State 12. Yeah, while that might suck and everything, it's not the greatest name in the world, let's be honest about it. It earns more money for its member schools, and that's really all that matters in the Big 12 eyes nowadays. Really, it's all about bridging the financial gap with the Power 2. And the biggest thing of all is actually overtaking the ACC in the financial position of the ACC schools eventually. Not quite there yet, but that gap is actually getting narrower and narrow, as you'll see in a second here. But check it out. So the All-State 12, how much is that going to earn? If this moves to the All-State 12 conference and the name changes from the Big 12, that's going to be good for probably around $30 to $50 million per year. If it's, say, $40 million, meet in the middle of that $30 to $50 million figure, that means about $2.5 million per school per year in perpetuity going forward. All-State 12, whatever, don't care. As long as it earns more members for the University of Utah and other schools in the Big 12 conference, I'm good with it. And it actually has big financial implications down the line, too. So that source document that we want to reference, number one, when we're looking actually at the new financial breakout for the Big 12 versus the ACC. Here, now let's jump over into a different area here. So Dennis Dodd produced an article from this week, too, that spoke about a lot of the same things that Brett McMurphy did. And also, he spoke on private equity, private capital. And we all have different views if we want to use private equity or private capital in the Big 12 conference. There could be a completely 2-hour podcast on that. We could all break down the pros and cons of doing so. That's not the purpose of this short video. The short video is a snippet within a Dennis Dodd article about the private equity's firm's view of the Big 12 conference. This is big, y'all. Check this out. Okay, so I'm going to read it verbatim here. This is in the Dennis Dodd article. A doubling of the Big 12 media rights would put the total value of the league at approximately $5 billion in its next negotiation. A 100% increase in value was deemed as reasonable by media industry sources contacted by CBS Sports. That's the one right there. A 100% increase in value was deemed as reasonable by media industry sources. You know what that means? That means that at the next go around of the Big 12 contract, the media industry sources, legit parties, are thinking the Big 12 media rights are going to double. A 100% increase is doubling, y'all. That's the biggest news of all. When you're looking at future financial projections for the ACC and the Big 12, especially when the Big 12's contract cycle ends a lot sooner than the ACC's would. So now let's go and break out actually the math here. A lot of these figures, a lot of you have seen before because it was in the ACC Doomsday Scenario presentation that was presented a few months back. But these figures have been revised now with just the most recent information. So let's break it out here. Let's look at the ACC payouts versus the Big 12 payouts with this brand new information, with the new All-State 12 conference money that's going to be coming in. And also with this new intel that, hey, the Big 12 media rights, when they're on renegotiation here for the next contract cycle, they're going to be a lot higher than we previously thought here. So let's pull it up. All right, let's look at the ACC payouts. So this is the ACC payouts from 2025 through essentially 2035. 2035 to 2036. So if you look at the value of all those cash flows, all the money that's coming in per year, and you add all those up by taking a discounted rate. This is a financial term and everything. You don't need to know all the mechanics of this and everything, but really the big idea is that what's the ACC contract worth with money from the CFB and also money that's coming in to the original schools from Stanford, Cal, and SMU, and really what all those future cash flows for each one of the ACC schools is worth is about 415 million today. 415 million today. And that is with a discount rate of 8%, which is reasonable for a college sports media contract. That discount rate was increased from the last go around of this analysis based on a little bit more digging and more conversations with some folks. So 415 million is what every ACC school is expecting to essentially get outside of Stanford, Cal, and SMU over the iteration until 2035, 2036. Okay. Now let's take a look at the Big 12. Okay, so for the Big 12, every school is expecting to earn around $350 million per year. And that is inclusive of the all-state money that is being discussed and likely about to be finished here. The all-state money will warrant about $2.5 million per school per year for the whole life of the contract with no estimated increase. There probably would be, but in this model, there's no estimated increase. So when you're looking at that, that is adding more cash flow to the Big 12 and actually more value to the Big 12 conference. But maybe the biggest thing of all, as we know that the Big 12 media rights are likely to double, according to industry sources, at the next contract renegotiation at the 2031 timeframe. This is taking an estimate and saying a conservative estimate based on that analysis and that statement and saying, okay, well, if the Big 12 contract doesn't double, but it only increases by 50% from the average contract amount today, what would that look like? So this is a 50% increase. So it's a more conservative than the industry is thinking. And you can see here that it's actually adding a lot of future cash flow and a lot of value in the present term to the Big 12. So 350 million, the Big 12 is anticipating earning until 2035, 2036, and into the future. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, okay, well, the ACC is still making more. Yeah, the ACC is still making more money. But we're talking about the gap. The gap is actually narrowing, it's shrinking. And here's an illustration of that. Last idea here for everybody. Okay, so the money difference, okay? The money difference between the ACC payouts and the Big 12 payouts now, based on the most recent information that we're seeing, is around $65 million with FSU, with Clemson, with Miami, with UNC, with everybody, with nobody leaving. That's not that big a gap, y'all. $65 million, really, in over an 11-year cash flow cycle, looking at today's term, is not a big gap at all. And formerly, in the prior analysis done, that gap was actually $98 million. So based on new information, the gap has shrunk from around $98 million to $65 million based on the momentum and the things that of the Big 12 and the things that Brett Yormark is doing. This is big time, y'all. That gap almost has shrunk in half right here. So even with Florida State and Clemson in conference in the ACC, the innovation of the Big 12 is absolutely working, and it's bridging this financial gap between the two conferences. We're not talking about the SEC and the Big 10 now. We are not there yet. The Big 12 and the ACC are far behind those. But right now, we're looking for bronze position. Who's going to be the third conference, third super conference? And this is really the things that matter. So the Big 12 obviously has more stability. Florida State, Clemson, one out of the ACC. UNC went out of the ACC. There's so much instability. That financial gap's narrowing, even with them in conference. It is not looking good for the ACC at all here. So, guys, this is big, big news right here. Still, there's a $65 million gap. That is shrunk basically almost in half, really, over like the last couple months of just analysis based on more recent information available. The Big 12 is slamming it. Brett Yormark, give the man kudos. And really, guys, if you like this video, please subscribe to the College Football Mafia channel. Like the video, leave a comment. We'll engage. We'll talk about this. And y'all, class is dismissed.